to give me like a 60-second warning? Cool. Okay. Hello and welcome. I am Sean Flinch Benson of the Victoria Ska and Reggae Broadcast System here for Garden City Grooves and the first workshop of our weekend. Today we'll be featuring Gabriel Teodros from Seattle, a hip-hop mogul, MC, and he'll be doing a little workshop for us, and then we will go to some audience questions as well. So if you're tuning in via our stream, you can actually comment to ask questions for this workshop as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Gabriel Teodros to the stage.
I feel like I'm at school, but at a venue, though. How are you guys doing? All right. Thank you. Thank you to all four of y'all here in the audience and all five of you helping curate the space and make it happen. Appreciate y'all. And to everybody out there, my name is Gabriel Teodros. I'm from South Seattle. I'm a hip-hop artist. I've done music, for well over 20 years now. And I've got a good friend with me. I'm just gonna jump into it, brother. Bringing my guy from South Seattle, Rel Be Free. He drove up with me from my neighborhood where we're from, and we're just gonna have a conversation, you know.
Us.
Yeah.
What's going on, y'all? Y'all doing all right? Yeah, don't trip. I won't ask y'all too many questions, but I would want y'all to think about what you would want to ask him as we're having this dialogue. And so I'm going to be asking him some questions. It's going to be kind of like interview style so that y'all get an opportunity to not only hear him think on his feet, but also to dive into his story a little bit. How many of y'all are familiar with Seattle, Washington? Yeah? So I'm going to just give y'all a brief history of Seattle in regards to where we come from. The way that Seattle is set up, you know, other cities got boroughs, they got neighborhoods. The way that Seattle's set up, there's North End, there's the East Side, which is called the CD, there's the South End, which is like Rainier Beach, Beacon Hill, and then there's the West Side. We're from the South Side, and the Central District, the eastern part, and the southern part is where the majority of black folks have been historically in Seattle. And due to gentrification and the different ways that economics have been affecting our neighborhood, those dynamics are changing. And so, Gabriel, I just want to hear from you as we just get kicked off. Tell us about how Seattle was foundational as a place for you as an artist, being a hip-hop artist especially.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good breakdown. I would also add, particularly in Seattle and in the South End, is also a huge immigrant community there, right? And my family's from Ethiopia. The Ethiopian community in Seattle is over 30,000, over 40,000 strong now. When my mother came to the South End, it was maybe 40 people strong, you know? So that helped shape my experience and the way I understand Seattle as well. Is it being a place where a lot of different communities from the global South come together, right? it was absolutely a black community, but it was also, growing up, it was a Mexican community. It was also a Filipino community, Colombian community. It became an Ethiopian community literally while I was growing up. And when I was growing up, it wasn't cool to be Ethiopian. You know what I mean? We were often the butt of a lot of jokes. You know what I mean? And there was no representation of us in music and in culture. You know what I mean? So in this neighborhood where you've got all these different communities right next to each other, everybody's grandma damn near speaks a different language. You know what I'm saying? The culture and the language that unified us came from black culture and was hip hop. You know, it was going outside. Breakdancing was, I was telling the brother earlier today, Sean, I was telling him that I didn't even know it was called hip hop. Like, breakdancing was so big in the early 80s. I don't know if you know, they outlawed breakdancing in Seattle in 1984. You know, it was on the books, and that law still might be on the books, you know, because it was such a public nuisance to people to have young people of color gathering outside in Seattle. There's always been police intimidation and harassment of young people of color gathering in Seattle, Washington. You know, in my life, I'm sure it goes before my life, but in my life, it started with the breakdancing laws, and it continued throughout the entire time that I've done hip hop music, right? So all that to say, hip hop was the language and the culture that helped me understand what it meant to be in Seattle, and it helped me understand the world that my family now lived in, you know, as meaning I'm the first in my family that's born in the United States. It was a completely different culture inside my house than it was outside my house. And if it wasn't for hip hop, I don't know how I would have survived, you know? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that part of your story. Are y'all Victorians? What's it called when you live in Victoria? Yeah, are y'all Victorians? Lit. No, okay. Where are y'all from? I just want to, go ahead, feel free to shout out. Where y'all from? DC, Ontario. Where else? 12 places, 3 countries.
I didn't hear what you said.
Mexico. Okay, so we got Saskatchewan. Yeah. Okay, so we got a very international room right now. I want to hear from you. Can you tell us about the first time that you traveled to share your music? Because we're in Victoria right now, and you're not from Victoria. And this doesn't always happen, you know. Granted, we have a room, everyone that's here today, this didn't have to happen, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a million places each of us could be, you know, right now. And so this is a moment that we want to take in with some intentionality. Why don't you tell us about the first time that you traveled outside of your city to be able to show your music?
Man. So my family grew up in Seattle. I grew up in Seattle, like I just told y'all. When I was in the 10th grade, so that's 1997. I remember it from the time, because it was the time that Biggie Smalls died. It was like the same week. My family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, 6 months after they killed Tupac in Las Vegas, Nevada, right? I remember it clearly. We drove down and the Hale Bopp comet was in the sky, and we were like following the comet to Las Vegas. It was a trip. So I have this high school experience that also is in Las Vegas. And growing up in Seattle, right, between the Central District and the South End, which, as we've established, 2 of the only neighborhoods that were communities of color, there was always a conflict between the 2 neighborhoods, right? And in that time period, going to Garfield High School, which is like this historic high school in Seattle. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. People like Jimi Hendrix and Quincy Jones went to this high school, as well as like Ishmael Butler from Diggable Planets and Shabazz Palaces and Vitamin D and damn near half of Seattle's hip hop scene. All went to this one high school. So I went to that high school, but I lived in a neighborhood called Beacon Hill in South Seattle. I was walking from one neighborhood into a school where that neighborhood was at war with where I lived. And I also had to walk through Little Saigon, which had the Asian Bloods. And that was a whole other complication, you know what I mean? So many people were dying when I went to Garfield High School in the 9th grade and 10th grade that I didn't think I was gonna live to see 18. And that was a very normal experience, right? a lot of people, like, that I had a feeling when I was in high school at Garfield of like, I didn't know which one of my friends wasn't going to be there the next week. Because every week it seemed like somebody was dying. We all had a death wish. We all felt like we weren't going to see 18. We weren't going to see 21. My family moved to Las Vegas, and I'm getting to your question because it's all related, you know? I know, I could be long-winded as hell. Hey, it's my workshop. Y'all okay for it? We moved to Vegas, right, in '97. It's the first time I'm in a predominantly white neighborhood. I'm in a predominantly white high school. And I mean, like, there was a high school of 3,000. I went to a high school in Vegas called Bonanza High School. It was at the edge of town, and there was maybe 30 black students, 30 Mexican students, and we all sat at the table together in a school body of 3,000, mind you. There were kids that had Nazi, like swastikas, like, tatted on their shit, you know what I mean? Excuse my language. It was wild oppressive, you know what I mean? There was a police substation in the middle of the school. I was in the police substation almost on a weekly basis, like constantly. The police would follow me as I was walking home from school, asking me what gang I was in, and I had just moved to the city. I didn't know anyone. There was no gang, you know? It was such a different environment than where I grew up. But again, because of the music I was listening to and because of the books I was reading, which I got to because of the music I was listening to, books like The Autobiography of Malcolm X, you know what I mean, Live from Death Row by Mumia Abu-Jamal, all of the Black Panther texts like Seize the Time, all of these books gave me a language to understand what was happening to us in Seattle. And it was a time where I understood there was a system in place that wanted kids like me to want to die. And understanding that at that age, it made me want to live more than anything else. So to answer your question, where did I first perform outside of the city, outside of Seattle? It was in Las Vegas. And it was because I was in that environment and I understood all this. I was in the 10th grade and I started taking my life seriously. I wanted to live. And I wanted to take my education into my own hands because I knew if I left it to them, they were going to kill me. They were going to chew me up and spit me out like they do everybody else, you know? And I knew that there was a path in hip-hop, you know? So that's where I started rapping. I started rapping at Bonanza High School, and then it moved down to a place called The Joint, which was a hip-hop record store that became my safe haven. And then The Joint started doing these park jams called JC. It was at a place called JC Park. It was called Doing It in the Park. And there was a couple members of Rocksteady Crew, the legendary Rocksteady Crew from New York City. They used to throw these park jams, and it was live. Like, it was breakdancing, it was black books, like people sharing pieces, it was live DJs, and there were ciphers and open mics. And that's where I started rapping in front of people. So it's kind of ill because I am a Seattle hip-hop artist. Like, I've given more to Seattle than I have anywhere else, and Seattle's given to me more than anywhere else. But truly, like, my first shows, my first recording experiences, the first time really rapping in front of a lot of people, actually all happened outside of Seattle in Las Vegas, you know? Now, the first time after that was probably in Redlands, California, because I had a friend, that went to school, and she brought me out for a show. And then after that, I would have to say it was Vancouver, you know? And that's a whole deep story that ties into Victoria, because I was part of a collective when I was 18, 19 years old, 19 actually. So when I was 19, what year was that? I was 2000, right? So 21 years ago. That's wild. 21 years ago, there was a hip-hop collective. It was called NAPS, North American Prophet Society. And there was multiple parts of NAPS that was in multiple cities. So Seattle had a crew called 500 Years, which was my crew. It was a live band. It was 5 MCs. It was Germ. It was Sun. It was Raj. It was, you know. Another crew from Seattle called Elevator Elements, which included some guy named Macklemore. And we clicked up with a crew in Vancouver called Fourth World Occupants, who also clicked up with a crew in Victoria called RIP, Resurrecting Imagination's Potential. It was Zest Nomis, Zeton. Let's see, I'm gonna forget a lot of people's names. There was a producer named Synchro. Ooh, who else was out here? Kest. They were MCs, they were producers. Zeton, did I say Zeton? He rapped in Japanese and English, and he lived here in Victoria. And yeah, we all used to click up and do shows together, and it was like a hip hop Northwest super crew between Seattle, Vancouver, and Victoria. So a lot of like my first tour was with Emotions from Fourth World, and we went all through Vancouver, hella different spots, up to Whistler, and to Victoria, like in 2000, you know? Okay. Yeah, so, long answer.
Shout out to Victoria. Thank y'all for.
By the way.
No.
Unless the answer is no.
It's a very anecdotal human sitting next to me. But so y'all are gonna get a lot of stories, and y'all hear history when you hear him speak. Honestly, you can ask him a regular question, you're gonna get some history. And that's all good. I wanna get some numbers out of you. So he don't know I'm about to do this to him, but we're finna do this, okay? So I'm finna ask a question, and I want you to give me the number. So if I say, how many albums have you released in your music career?
I have to give you a number, because I gotta count.
You have to give me a number.
Okay. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Mixtapes or albums?
Projects.
Projects, so we counted mixtapes, albums?
How many music projects, yes.
Okay, look, I'm gonna go by year, all right? So 2001, 2005, 6, 7.
See, he can't just give me a number, huh?
I'm counting. 10, 11, 2 and 12, 2 and 14. The one that we did, History Rhymes. And then what we leave behind, 13.
13, y'all clap it up for 13 LPs, projects in a human life. Okay.
Not including compilations.
Not including compilations, okay. So then, how many different artists have you collaborated with? Not including producers, just artists.
Hundreds.
How many different producers have you worked on whole projects with?
Whole projects? Mm-hmm. Again, I got to do the thing. Sorry.
Let's do the math.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm just trying to get him to show out a little bit.
this is funny. Nobody asks me this. I think Teal, Amos, right? Jeremy, Soul Chef, Burnt Face, Mocha Only, Ian Head. I think 7.
7.
Full producers that produced a full album for me.
Okay.
7.
So I asked these questions to get us to this question.
Okay.
I want you to tell us about collaboration, whether it was a song, whether it was a project, whether it was a group that you could talk about. Tell us about a collaboration. And the reason why we ask collaboration, for this event to occur, it takes some collaboration, right? We got sound, we got music, we got talent, we got somebody making chicken in the front, okay? Everybody's playing their role. And in the music, it's very much the same. And it's not something that just comes, though. It takes work, it takes energy. And so tell us about a collaboration sometime in your career. And I know that there's a few that you could speak on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like this question because even as a solo artist, there's none of my work that I feel like is me alone. You know, none of it. I would say, and I say this to younger artists all the time, relationships will take you further in your life and your career than money ever could. So keep good relationships with anyone and everyone you meet at every level. You know what I mean? Yeah, music is collaboration. It's about connection. It's about conversation. That is the point of why we do what we do. At the end of the day, is to connect, you know? Even if we're just in our rooms, like, writing, and you want somebody to receive the thing that you're sharing at some level, you know what I mean? So there's that. A lot of my ideas and like my practices, I would say, of collaboration come from my first group that really did something, which is Abyssinian Creole. It's a group comprised of my brother Kings, who, lucky y'all, you get to see Kings and me and Rel together tomorrow night right here on this stage. So Kings is a phenomenal MC from South Seattle, same neighborhood we're from. He hands down is like the best freestyler I've ever heard in my life. But he also is an incredibly prolific and clear writer, you know? He's written more songs than anyone I know. Mind you, I work with Mocha Only as well, who has like 100 albums under his belt, you know what I mean? Khalil writes like that. Because of those two artists being in my cipher, they're the reason I've created as much as I do, because I don't make that much compared to them, you know? And two of the people that I work with happen to be the two most prolific hip hop artists I've ever seen or heard, you know? So there's that. Khalil and me started Abyssinian Creole, back in 2001, you know? But the album came out, like the public heard the first album in 2005. What I love about that album, it's all rooted in friendship. I realized that our best shows happen when we're just around each other more, and we don't practice for any of our shows. That's a big secret. But you wouldn't know that because we're just that in tune with each other, you know, and because it's based in real friendship. But one of the things that I've learned the most from that collaboration, in particular making the first album, because there also was a producer that did that record. His name is Teodros. He's like producing, he's in LA like producing for Big Frida and stuff these days. Like he's doing like major label stuff. And Chasm actually, from 206 Zulu, Chasm helped us release that album. Everything that made that first Abyssinian Creole album was a consensus with the four of us, not just me and Khalil. And I love that, you know what I mean? Because we all had different ideas of what was dope. But if all four of us could agree, like all four of us said, yeah, this thing is dope, then it went. You know what I'm saying? If out of those four people, if any one of us said, no, I'm not so sure on it, we either scrapped it or worked on it till everybody agreed, you know? And that model of consensus decision-making is something that I have carried on into every collaboration that I've done, whether it was me and Amos making Love Work, whether it was Makalik Hadero and Burnt Face and Chris Coniglio and me making Copper Wire years later, whatever it is, like consensus has always made the dopest projects, you know what I mean? And I really want to like dwell on that for another minute because I feel like anything that you do in a small community, even if it's like a group of your friends and it seems impossible, but you can make it work in your small group. I feel like I believe in microcosms and macrocosms. I believe that what works for a small group can work for a large group. So try consensus building in your organization. It might do wonders for your community. Just saying.
Lit. Yeah, that concept you just spoke on, there's a writer and an author. Her name is Adrienne Marie Brown, and she has a couple of books out. One of the books that she has recently is called Emergent Strategy, and she talks about this concept of fractals. So if things work at a small level, they probably also operate on a larger level. So if you look at a leaf, there's an infinite amount of cells that's going on a leaf. You can see the patterns on the leaf. In a similar way, you take a step back and you look at the stars. There are patterns within our solar system. And so just wanted to connect that to Adrienne Marie Brown as I'm hearing you talk about fractals. Bet. Now, I want to get y'all activated, though, because I want y'all to be also, knowing the people next to you. So I'm going to ask y'all to do something real quick. I want you to think into your memory bank of the last song that you heard. Literally, the last song you heard. Maybe in the car on the way over here, somebody was playing it. And then to the person next to you, if you're comfortable, tell them about the last song you heard. And just tell them why you were listening to it, what it did for you. Little break to talk to somebody next to you. So real quick, think about the last song you heard, share it with the person next to you. We're gonna do it too, and then we're gonna come back in a sec. So go ahead and give somebody your answer. What's the last song you heard? And tell them about it a little bit. Bad. Okay. Glad. I just wanted to kind of make sure y'all know that, while he's up here, we're also here together. You dig, Shout out some of the songs that you heard recently. Just shout them out. Under the boardwalk. That's that same song? Whoa. You just connected Eggs Benedict, Crescendo, and Under the Boardwalk. That was a cool trifecta. I love that. How you did that was awesome. Drifted, okay, yeah, I love it. What are some other songs that y'all heard recently? Tell me about it. Yeah.
The new project with Hit Boy.
With Hit Boy.
Yeah. So I get a little anxious sometimes, but those kinds of songs put me in the right mindset to just say fuck it and do the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Because, why not?
Hell yeah. We can cuss on this, right?
I hope.
Cool, we've been cussing. Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm not tripping. I'm really not tripping. I want to make sure everybody
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to that and then my headphones died. So it basically just looped in my head while I just skated here. So
Yeah. Dope. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
And so I want y'all to think, and sorry, we're not going to go on, everybody's not going to shout their song. I just want to hear a couple of them. But I do want y'all to think about it. If there's anything you want to ask this man right here, be thinking about that. And a couple questions, we're going to give another chance for audience questions. So with that, I heard fam say the headphones broke. The headphones died. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because you've kind of talked about, you haven't aged yourself, but you mentioned how old you were in '97. Yeah. And so you've definitely seen some transitions, not just in mainstream music, but also in musical technology. So the way that y'all listen to music now is, a lot of times, it's streaming, right? That's one of the major ways of listening to music. When you started making music, y'all was dubbing tapes.
100, yeah.
Ain't nobody dubbing tapes anymore. So can you just tell us about that journey of being an artist in a time where distributing your music, there was a different way to distribute it. And 20 years later, there's a new way of distributing your music, but you're still able to find a way to not just create, but also share it with the people that want to hear it. Just tell us about that journey.
Yeah, for sure. Rel is an amazing facilitator. This is great. So like you said, I started with tapes. I had a dual cassette deck attached to a record player, attached to a radio player in my mom's house. And the first piece of music that I ever sold wasn't even me rapping, but it was a paused cassette tape that I made from recordings that I had collected from saving my little lunch money up and buying singles and shit, and recording songs from the radio. And I used to make pause mix cassettes, and in the 9th grade I would sell them for $5. I had a mixtape series called For the People as a 9th grader, So that was my first time selling music. I didn't really rap in front of people for a couple years. With that same box though, it had a microphone input too. So I used to rap on the instrumentals on records, and that was how I practiced. And eventually that same box was how we ended up making our first mixtapes that was our own music, I want to shout out my first crew though, 500 Years, because when I really started performing live, it was with a live band. It was all live instrumentation, and we did not have access to a studio. Home studios had just kind of started with 4-track machines, and if you were really fancy, you might have the Digital 8, recording on a computer. Maybe some people did at that point, but I don't know anyone that did, And we kind of, you got to keep in mind, this is the raucous era. This is the dawn of what looked like independent hip hop to us. I say what looked like independent hip hop to us because when I was younger, I thought Raucous was an independent entity. This is the label that put out Mos Def and Talib Kweli and Company Flow and a million different artists, right? They put all their music out on vinyl exclusively in the beginning. So it was one of the things that really got me into collecting vinyl, you know, when I was in high school, was I wanted to get like the latest 12-inch from Rawkus, and then I learned about other indie labels, like, I don't know, there was a million of them, you know. So with my band, our goal and the thing we were going for was like, we wanted to rock every show, every cypher, every battle, and we really did all three of those things just for a chance to get to a real studio to cut a single that we could press onto 12-inch wax. And if we could put out a 12-inch in 1999, we felt like we were going to be on. Like, that was it. That was the goal. We weren't even thinking about albums. You know what I mean? It wasn't until kind of linking up with Nap's crew, again, like in, what year was that? 2000, that I met people that had the Digital 8 at their house, you know? And it's interesting because when I look at the people that made up that crew, there were families that came from wealth, and the kids of the families that came from wealth had access to the Digital 8, you know? And we all used to record at their house. And it was the first time I saw a class difference in hip hop, you know? But yeah, that's how we got our first recordings done. And we really looked at groups like Living Legends and Hieroglyphics and different groups from Cali that were making their own 4-track recordings and pressing up the tapes and selling it themselves. We looked at that as our model, and we did that in Seattle. So we had like series and series of mixtapes. We used to call them I think it was called Heavenly Ghetto Cuts. I think that might have been the name of it. Like volumes 1 through 6, and these were our $5 mixtapes that we sold, right? And then later it evolved to having a CD burner and dubbing and doing the high-speed CD burning at home, going on Kinko's runs and you know what I'm saying, like printing the covers and cutting it ourselves and folding it and putting it in so it looked professional, and people would be hella impressed because of the package. So that was the era, man. And it's wild because I was 20 years old, I think, or 21 with my first like thing on CD. It was the first album. It was called Sun to Recycle Soul, a horrible album. Please don't look for it. But I sold enough to be able to pay rent. You know what I mean? Seriously, like, I'm proud of the rest of the work after that, but the first album was trash. It was just a fact, you know? Yeah, you could, yeah, please. At the time, I was unsure of it. At the time, there was moments that I thought were cool, and there was moments where I was like, oh, I like how my voice sounds here. I like this one song, I like this beat. But as a full project, no, I don't think I even thought it was dope when it was new. But I was so confident in my potential that I still pushed it, you know? And I thought that other people would see the potential in it too. It's funny because when I think about who I was and the things I did when I was younger, I was a bold, audacious, in-your-face, approaching strangers in the street kind of young person. Like, I would never do any of the things I did like when I was between the ages of 17 and like 24. Like, I'm like, I don't know where it came from. Like, I'm too much of an introvert, but I really used to approach strangers on the streets. I've done it in Victoria and asked them like, hey, do you like hip hop? You want to hear a verse? And rap for them, you know? And I paid rent that way, you know? So to answer your question, that's how it started, and it evolved, right? Like, with Abyssinian Creole, hey, we got the goal. We put out our first 12-inch in 2005, and then our first CD that was professionally mastered and manufactured, and there was an era where you could like really make a living off CDs, and then in came iTunes, right? This is the evolution of how we get to digital. In comes iTunes, and I was on a site because I didn't want to do mail order anymore. Oh, MySpace was a thing too. That was this ancient relic of a website. MySpace was a big deal for a hot second, and it helped me out a lot because I got on MySpace really early. This is just a fluke. Like, I got on MySpace really early, and like, man, has everyone seen MySpace here? Is anyone that's never seen it? Okay. If you've never seen it, like, MySpace is like pre-Friend. God, I was about to say Friendster. I'm about to really age myself. Pre-Facebook, right? Social media, and it had a feature called the Top 8 where you could organize your friends, you know. But that feature where you could organize your top 8 friends that showed up on your page came later. I signed on to MySpace hella early, so I was in everybody's top 8, like right after Tom, like when MySpace was new. And because of that, like I had a hella early like MySpace music page just because like I knew somebody that helped build the website. Bro, like I kind of built like a national and international following through that website, but I never spammed anybody. Like for real, like it was just a fluke of being on that joint early. So all that to say, through MySpace, I started doing mail orders, and people would PayPal me money, and I would go to the P.O. box myself and send you stuff. This website called CD Baby came along, and I realized, I could send this other company my CDs, and they'll do the distribution for me, so I don't got to go to the post office as much. That's why I got on CD Baby. Little to my knowledge, CD Baby's future would be digital distribution, and that was how the music for us ended up on iTunes. At that time, it was just iTunes, right? And it was cool because it was like a residual income that came in all the time, and we didn't have to press anything up. You know what I mean? That would be like somebody buys your album, you get $6 in your account every time somebody did that, right? I don't remember what year we're in anymore, and I don't remember how many more years it was. Bandcamp popped up at some point, and then everything went to streaming. And now in the streaming era, it's like...
Before you go there, I'm going to take us there.
You want to take us there?
Don't go there, because I'm going to take us there.
Okay.
Don't just go there.
Because I'm going to hand you the mic because that's where I want to go. Okay.
Hand it back. Because we are going to go there. Before we go there, though, I'm going to invite y'all to do something again with the people next to you. I want you to think about the way that you consume music. Because we're talking about our artists and our favorite musicians, the way that they make a living is off of the music. And so when we think about an era right now where Spotify gives you 0.00001% of every play, it's like the question is, how do musicians actually make money off of the music anymore? And not only are we all probably musicians, we also consume the product as well. And I don't know if y'all remember LimeWire. You remember LimeWire? Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm a pirate, a full-blown pirate because of LimeWire. And I never thought, like, I wonder if Young Jeezy wants me to buy his album. You know what I'm saying? Like, he probably does. So for a sec, I'd love for y'all to just discuss with each other real quick. Just talk about the way that you consume music. I was telling Gabriel on the way over here that I go to half-price books and I still buy CDs because I like to collect them, you know? So for a couple of minutes, share with people next to you, you know, how do you consume music? Do you listen to it on streaming platforms? And then also think a little bit about, like, have you ever thought about the artists that you listen to? Like, you know, do the Doors want me to buy this album? Is there a way I can get the Doors this money? So for a second, talk with each other about that, and then we'll bring us back and we'll dive into some controversial stuff.
I actually had a question that popped into my head in regards of distributors, because you were mentioning CD Baby. Are you still with CD Baby for distribution, or have you moved on to another distributor?
Ooh, can we ask that when after
Yeah,
folks
sure.
are done talking? Yeah, definitely. I'll put that in the queue. Absolutely. Proceed. What time is it? I think we're at 4:30, right? Yeah, cool. We got till 4:30, right? Cool.
Oh, yeah, because we started.
Bet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How we looking? We still looking good? Cool. All right. I'm gonna bring it back. I'm gonna bring it back. Thank y'all for thinking about that. Now we're gonna get into some controversial stuff, because Gabriel said that he doesn't press the buttons anymore, or that he was a little more chiller than he was 17 to 24. I don't think that's true. And one of the things I would like you to tie that into, though, is your transition, not just from being a musician, but if you didn't know, Gabriel is also a DJ, and he does a daily show on KEXP in the Northwest. It's globally available early.
It's called Early.
And he puts on for just hip hop, global hip hop, not just local hip hop, not just rap in the United States, international hip hop as well. And this has created a new platform, a different platform for the things that you share, not just as a musician, but also as a DJ. So if you could just talk a little bit about that transition from, and we're getting into the CD Baby question as well, the transition from musician and then adding that / DJ, and then some of this recent stuff with Spotify that's been popping up. Shout out to India.Arie and all the artists that are speaking out. But yeah, just give you your perspective on those things.
Definitely. Man, I kind of want to start there because we were just talking about that. So I was giving y'all the history, right? With streaming, it's wild because, so y'all saw Spotify Wrapped, right? You've seen that at the end of every year, Spotify puts out these statistics saying, you know, you've listened to this many artists and this many genres for this many hours, right? And then for artists, it says you've been listened to for this amount of time and this many listeners and this. So I had, for whatever reason, the last year as a musician, in a year where I wasn't even pushing myself as a musician, like for real, like I've been DJing, you know, I've been on the radio through the pandemic, released one album that I wasn't able to tour, whatever. I still had a song that kind of picked up steams, and I had more streams than I ever had in the last year. I don't know why, it's still a fluke. But my Spotify Wrapped numbers were pretty high. And at some point, like 6 months ago, I asked like my Facebook friends, why? why is this song blowing up right now? It's an old song from 2014, a song that's not a single that I didn't put anything into, and for whatever reason in 2021 it took off. It's weird. Algorithms do that sometimes, I guess. And people were congratulating me, like, man, your streaming income must be great. Like, good for you. You're really gonna be making money now. Serious, like, you know? So when the Spotify Wrapped came in and I was able to like really look at like what these numbers are, I went to my DistroKid account to answer your question. I use DistroKid.
I'm also with DistroKid.
Yeah, I looked at my DistroKid numbers, not just for that song, but overall, and I had made $150 for the year. For the entire year, you know, on a year where I had higher streaming numbers than all the other years. And I was like, wow, imagine me telling my 18-year-old self, you're going to put some music out that's going to be consumed in like 300, like I don't know how many countries, hundreds of countries, you know, 80,000 or more times in a year, and you're gonna make 15, the same like sales that you would make from selling 15 CDs, you know? And it just really showed me like with that, in that moment, like how much things have changed, you know what I mean? And how much harder it must be for a younger artist right now, or different, I should say different, because I do feel like artists now, you know what I'm saying? And this is where I start sounding like an old person for real. I'm like, you youngins. No. No, but like you are afforded like greater access, I would say, to a global listenership. But that access to eyes and ears doesn't equate to anything financially. And you almost have to create another stream of income that has nothing to do, or maybe it's just tangentially related to music, to make a living as a musician. And it sucks, you know? So anyways, I made a post about that publicly, and it went super viral the last couple of months. It's been weird. Like, shit got weird, real. Like, the Washington Post hit me up, Variety hit me up, Pramila Jayapal talked about it.
You said Verizon?
Variety.
Oh, okay.
Variety magazine. Yeah, Verizon didn't hit me up. Nah, Pramila Jayapal, she's like the Washington State Congresswoman, like talked about it, like in a congressional hearing, like me by name and shit, you know? Shit got weird, you know? But nothing's changed. You know, like all that to say, shit got weird and nothing's changed. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just to wrap up the streaming convo. You asked about becoming a DJ at this age. That's been awesome. It's been weird because I've been an overnight DJ on KXP for like 4 or 5 years. Shout out to all the overnight DJs. It's a hard grind. I was doing this show for 5 hours, like from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Friday nights, you know, but I loved it because I told y'all earlier, like I fell in love with a lot of hip hop because of stuff I was listening to on the radio. So being able to, you know, it's something my friend John Moore said. John Moore is like an elder of mine in Seattle who passed away a couple years ago. He said earlier, like, find and grow and invest in your life outside of hip hop and watch your time and your life inside of hip hop grow, you know, watch it be better. And that's something I thought about. And I also thought about John Moore just as a person in his life. He was somebody that whatever space this man occupied, he brought the culture with him, you know what I mean? And he changed our city for the better. So I thought, after John died, I thought a lot about what John would do and what does it mean to grow older in hip hop gracefully and continue to open doors for other people. And the KXP thing just happened, and that's always been an intention with my space there, is like, how do I use this space to open up more opportunities for everyone coming up after me? You know what I mean? And it was always a move to try to shift culture in Seattle and outside. I wanted to give it 3 years. And if I didn't see anything shift in 3 years, I was thinking about quitting. 3 years happened, and they promoted myself and they promoted Larry Mizell Jr. to daily shows, you know? So you've got 2 people who are on KXP 5 days a week in prime time hours now that come from hip hop that are, you know, not just playing music, but also like we have other jobs at the station. Larry's an executive. I'm on the management level. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's fly. You know what I mean? And it's very fulfilling work. It pays the bills better than anything else I've done, if I might say. You know, shout out to all the listeners and the support and everyone who's made KXP what it is. You know, it's a huge blessing. But it's even wild to be back here in Victoria right now to do a rap show, because I have spent the last 2 years of my life on the radio every single morning from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. not rapping. You know what I mean? And I still make music as much as I can. And I feel like I'm a lifer. Like, I'm going to do this till the day I die. I can't imagine myself not making music. But it's not, you know, in my 40s, it's not what it was when I was in my 20s or even my 30s, you know? So, I don't know. That's just a constant thought, like how to age with hip-hop gracefully in a way where you continuously evolve and don't stay stuck in the things you was doing when you were in your 20s, because that's what I see a lot of my OGs doing. They're stuck, you know? Continuously evolve, but continuously put other people on and stay connected to the young people, you know? It's something that actually I heard Snoop Dogg say in an interview. It was like one of my favorite quotes. He said, the old heads and the old generation and the younger generation need to hold hands, you know? And that's just the truth of it. That's how we grow as a people, you know? So, yeah.
I was trying to hold your hand. He threw me the mic. That's okay. That's how we hold hands, is he passed me the mic. I want to pass y'all the mic. Do y'all have any questions that you want to throw Gabriel's way before we get to our final joint?
Hold up.
There's a microphone for you.
Hi. Okay, so earlier you touched base on like the collaborations and the successes you've had through your projects, and like just through all of it. Could you touch base maybe on like getting through like like projects that have failed.
Oh, interesting.
And then keeping friendships through that as well, like, and just like, you know, not to like call anyone out or like anything like that, but like, and then like to touch base, because, you know, like as artists we feel everything, right?
Yeah.
So when that kind of fails and you have to get through that and still live life and like love these people the same way, but internally you have that kind of sorrow between each other, right? So I'm just wondering, if you could touch base on that, on projects that weren't a success, but overall a success in life because you still have that friend and like that love kind of.
Yeah, I like that question. It's hard because I don't look at any of my projects that have been released as failures. Yeah, yeah. Because to me, a lot of times, like, the success happens in putting the thing out. Not every project lands the same way, but I've always been an underground artist, you know? The successes that I've had have been more of surprises than the norm. You know what I mean? The norm has been, I'm putting some music out and it's connecting with my core fans, and that might be it for a while, you know? And that's fine, you know? To get to the core of your question, to me, the success is in the relationships. It is in, are we putting music out? Do we feel good about the music? Are we proud of it? You know, did we make something that we're proud of together, that we can like perform, that we can rock, that, you know, like, then it's a success. There are unreleased projects, tons of them. Like over half of the material I think that I've made in my life has not been released. And the majority of that is with people that I have released music with, you know? It just is what it is. Like, I guess I'm not so attached to the outcome of like working on music, like if it gets released or not, that it's going to sever a relationship. To me, like, I would rather have a friendship than have an album any day. You know what I mean? So now, aside from that, there's absolutely friendships that have fallen apart, but they haven't fallen apart because of music. They've fallen apart because of things that have nothing to do with music for the most part. Like I can't think of a single friendship I've lost because of some music shit. You know what I mean? Nah, yeah.
Because that's kind of how it's created in the long run anyways, right? Mm-hmm. It's those sorrows as well as the attributes.
I have seen some friendships strained to the point of loss because of success, not because of the lack of success. When success strikes, it's unpredictable, it's isolating. You are suddenly surrounded by yes people who are attracted to a light, and they're not even like attracted to the person because of who they are. You know what I mean? Like, they're attracted to this thing that makes money, and they start objectifying you. Like, being super successful is damn near like a form of objectification. You know what I mean? In a way, like, people have to sell themselves in this society under capitalism to get to that level. And the most successful people that I know in my life have also been the loneliest. You know what I mean? And yeah, I've seen that strain friendships more than a lack of success. You know, to keep it real with you, you know? Yeah. Oh, for sure. Thanks for the question. Yeah. Is there anything else? Or Red wants the mic.
Give me that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I have a question. So I started performing as an MC when I was about 27, and much the same to you, is I performed with a live band. Now, one of the obstacles I faced in Victoria, the scene was kind of separated. So hip-hop shows were DJs and rappers, and then other shows just didn't have that genre included at the time. So did you find, like in Seattle, was that a similar kind of obstacle that you faced, was finding shows to play and playing with a live band, but also playing hip-hop?
Man, it's funny because when I was really playing with the live band I mentioned, 500 Years, it was 1999. And doing a hip hop show itself was hella challenging, period. We had something in Seattle called the Teen Dance Ordinance, where, mind you, I was 18 at the time, so I couldn't go to a club anyways. I couldn't go to a 21 and up venue. So to do an all ages show in Seattle at the time, an organizer would have to get a $1 million insurance policy on the venue just to do an all ages show. It made it impossible for anyone to do an all ages show. So all that to say, 500 Years was a band who did all these shows pretty much, keep in mind, 1999 in Seattle, WTO protest time. We primarily performed at protests, rallies, open mics. There was one regular all ages show that happened in Seattle at the time. It was called the Short Shot Sundays. Shout out to my man John Morgan, rest in peace, and Kylea. It was every Sunday. It was all we had for hip hop, was one show a week that we could go to, and we went to it like church, you know. So that was a place we performed, and we could bring the band. The band was welcomed. It was encouraged. We weren't the only ones, by the way. Kings, the other half of my crew, Abyssinian Creole, he was also in a live band. They were a little older than us, because Khalil's 2 years older than me. They were called Maroon Colony. So a lot of times you would see Maroon Colony and 500 Years on bills together. There was another crew who came up after us a little bit, Aaron Walker Loud's band. They became known as Big World Breaks, but originally back in the day, they were a crew called Jabba's Lair. And yeah, all three of us, we would do shows together, you know? So there was a space for it. Later on, I would say, because that's not the only time I performed with the live band, but when my album, Love Work, really took off, in 2007, I started getting guarantees where I could pay more than just myself to perform, and I put a band together then. And then the challenge wasn't venues being welcoming for it. It was, is there a budget that makes sense enough for me to pay everybody to even show up? Because if I can't make at least $1,500, I can't bring a band, you know, period. Like, it just can't happen, you know? And that's the low end, you know? So it gets really expensive when you want to pay all your musicians a good amount for the night, you know? Because it's not just one show, right? It's rehearsals, you know? Yeah, so long answer. I think you had a question too.
Okay. Sure? Okay. You sure? Okay. Y'all gonna talk after, though. Okay, yeah, it'd be like that. It's okay. Yeah, should be taking notes when this guy's talking for real. Okay, we're gonna do a thing real quick. I'm gonna say something, and I need you to just give me the first thing that comes to mind.
Podcast real right here.
Okay?
I have a podcast, but I think you should.
No. So I'm gonna say it, and then you're gonna, okay. Abyssinian Creole.
Dope.
Dubbing tapes.
That's how I started.
Napster.
Who remembers Napster?
Hip hop.
Life.
Ethiopia.
Home.
Victoria.
Where we at right now?
Lit. Are y'all supposed to clap it up at that part? Hey. Clap it up, clap. Okay. I think we're close to time, and so we're gonna wrap. And I got one final thing though. I would like you to speak on. And you know, we try to push the, you know me, bro, and I know you. We push the marker. So we've talked about some stuff. We talked about the history of music. We talked about a lot of history within the scene. We've heard a little bit about Spotify. Now I'll be remiss in a room full of men and my sister, and I'm not sure what other folks' gender identity is. Is to ask about the importance of a healthy masculinity. One, as a man, two, as a black man, and especially as a person in hip hop. I want you to just talk about what's your role with a healthy masculinity. And I say that because I know I was raised by folks that everybody doesn't identify as a man. And I know that we can't not acknowledge the power dynamics, not just in this country, probably in our families, in our friendships, in our work relationships, in our romantic relationships, the power dynamics. When it comes to gender. And so I'd be remiss in a room that is definitely disproportionate gender-wise for us to not speak on that. especially as we're talking about hip hop. So if we can close on that note and you just kind of share a little bit about your journey in navigating having a healthy masculinity in a realm like hip hop as well, but also in a country like the United States. Speak to that.
And thank you for this question, bro. Rel is the dopest facilitator. Like, this is awesome. Yeah, so, man, where to start with this? Because I feel like this question right here could easily be another hour-long workshop, right? Where to start? I was raised by a single Ethiopian woman, you know, who had to overcome insurmountable, you know, issues, even with my father in society, you know, the intersections of being a woman, being a black woman, being a black immigrant woman in Seattle while raising me, while also, sponsoring the whole rest of my family. Like, she was a matriarch who did it all, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't be me without her, you know, and without everything that she did, and it wasn't fair, you know. It never was fair. So I just have to, you know, shout out my moms first. But after that, where did I learn about masculinity from? It's a lot of people, you know, and it's a lot of things that were not healthy, you know, particularly from hip hop, but also just in society and culture, way beyond hip hop, you know, but also in hip hop too, especially at the time I came up in. It was hostile to women, I would say, locally in the scenes where I came up in, right? Like there were a few, like, talk about the MC battles, right? Like in the battle scene when I was coming up, every now and then there would be a woman that would enter the battle. She couldn't get through the battle without everyone just objectifying her and talking about her body parts, right? Like everything about being a woman was seen as weak in our culture, inside the music, in the way that these little boys were writing their rhymes, you know what I mean? And it was totally dehumanizing, you know? And as a young person who didn't immediately interrogate those things, because I didn't, these things happened around me, and I knew they were wrong, but I didn't speak up, you know? I had to get called out, bro. Like, it took me getting called out for crossing a line, for crossing a boundary, you know what I mean, that shouldn't have been crossed, for me to really look at myself and to look at my crew and to look at everyone around me and say, why do I think that's okay? It's not, you know? And from there, I went through a very long process of studying the works of Bell Hooks, of studying Audre Lorde. I worked at an organization called Communities Against Rape and Abuse, where it was black women organizers who took me under their wing and they mentored me and really showed me a way to a healthy masculinity. You know what I mean? I learned so much about what a healthy masculinity can be from queer black women, period. You know what I mean? But it was a long journey, and it is still a long journey, and it will always be a long journey, because what I've learned and what I've seen is that no matter how many books you've read, no matter how well you can talk the talk, it's just like being an addict. You know what I mean? You are always one step away from violating somebody. You are always one step away from speaking over somebody, for taking up some space, for not making room for women in your life. Like, it's always right there. So this path, this like walk that we're on to being the kind of men that I know I didn't see growing up. I can't speak for you, but I didn't see the type of men growing up that I wanted to be like. Like, I saw very oppressive men growing up the whole time. You know, I learned what healthy masculinity looked like, a lot of it from certain friendships that I had. You know, Khalil was one of the most important friendship that I had in that, because we had real, honest, open, vulnerable conversations where we could let our whole everything, you know what I'm saying, like, shine and hang out there, and we became better men because of that, you know? But it was rare. It's not as rare now, but it still doesn't happen as much, you know? So that's kind of what it is for me, man. Like, in hip hop, I've always tried to create spaces, safe spaces for women to do their music. A lot of times that means saying no to shows that are all men. A lot of times that meant opening up my home to recording projects for people for free. A lot of times, I mean, there's just so many ways, and it's not even, like, it seems even funny to try to, like, pat myself on the back for any of that, but it's just real, and it's life work, and I thank you for asking that question, because it absolutely is, like, one of the guiding things that I've stayed, like, anchored to throughout my entire career. You know what I mean? Is modeling a healthy black masculinity, you know, because it's healing, because we need it, because the next generation needs it. It's just, you know, it's why I still rap, bro. It's why I DJ, it's why I do all this shit, you know? So, yeah, thank you. Oh, shit, he just asked for a verse. After all that.
Yes.
Yeah. I know I do. I mean, I'm gonna rap for an hour tomorrow.
Yeah.
Except I'm not gonna rap for an hour because I brought Rel and I brought Khalil, so I'm sharing some space.
Yeah. Gabriel Teodros, y'all. Can y'all make some noise? Thank y'all for this. Thank y'all for this opportunity to come out to Victoria, hear from a living legend who's been through it. If y'all want to holler at him afterwards, with his permission, you can chop it up with him and stuff. I think that's a wrap. Can I pass it back to you, fam? Sean?
Not yet. Please make some noise for Rel Be Free. Amazing facilitator. Hey, he's a phenomenal MC. He happens to be one of my favorite hip-hop artists from the neighborhood where I grew up. Check out all his music. This guy is the truth. That's what I wanted to say.
All right, ladies and gentlemen and people of all identities, let's give another round of applause for Rel and Gabriel Teodros. Thank you for coming to the workshop. Thank you for tuning in at home. And be sure to pick up tickets for their performance tomorrow night with the Soul Rebels and DJ Abel. Thank you for tuning in. Oh, yes, and we also have a workshop tomorrow, same time-ish, 3:30 to 4:30, with the Soul Rebels from New Orleans.